Hello, welcome to my channel if you're new, welcome back if you're a subscriber. Today I have a huge pile of books. Can I even lift this at this angle? Hold on. I'm trying. I don't want to drop them. This is surprisingly heavy. Anyway, I have a huge stack of books here. I am doing the mid-year freakout tag for 2022 and I cannot believe it's already July. How is it July? I legitimately don't know how the time has passed so fast. Let me know in the comments if I'm the only one, but I feel like this year has moved so incredibly fast. I feel like I didn't even remember June, so. I have read 41 books this year, which is fine. I'm not really at my halfway point. My goal is 100 books by the end of the year, but I still have, quite a few months to complete that goal. And obviously Goodreads goals, it's not everything, but I do really want to reach that 100 book milestone for me because I've never read that much in a year and it would make me really excited and proud of myself. So I want to talk about the books that I have read so far that I love, that I think you should read. And I have my laptop here and I'll be reading off the questions and then I will give you all my personal answers. So the first question is the best book I've read so far in 2022, and I feel like this might surprise some people because it's not a very popularly talked about book, but I have it right here, and it is The Lies We Told by Camilla Way, and I love this purple cover. It's so nice. I feel like there aren't many books with purple covers, so it's really nice to see one on my shelf. But this book is so good and so underrated. If you haven't read this one, please give it a shot. It's so good and I'm gonna tell you all about it. But this one kind of snuck up on me this year because it was an add-on for Book of the Month and I almost didn't even read this. But a few months ago, I was going through this phase where I really wanted to read almost all of my Book of the Month books. I didn't get too far because I own a ton are on my shelf over to the right of me that I'm looking at right now. But I read quite a few of them and I picked this one up. I listened to the audiobook and I absolutely flew through this book. If you're looking for an underrated thriller that's psychological, please pick this one up. It's so good. Also, I want to say I would recommend not even reading the synopsis in the inner cover or even really the one on Goodreads. I would just avoid it. I would just mostly go into this one blind besides what I'm telling you because I do feel like it kind of gives away a little bit of the twist. So this book is told through two POVs, which I really love in books when you get about two POVs. Whenever it's more than that, it gets a little bit overwhelming for me. It can be really good. For example, The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I absolutely loved all the POVs. It was amazing. I loved listening on audiobook to the full cast, but this one just has two POVs and I thought it was the perfect amount. And one of them is following Beth, and she is a mother in the 1980s. And her daughter is showing some sociopathic tendencies. So as soon as I started reading this and understanding kind of something was really off with the daughter, it was so interesting to me. Creepy kids in horror movies are just like my favorite thing to watch. I think little children when they're creepy are so disturbing. And so you're listening to this mom kind of struggle with connecting to her daughter, and she has another child after her daughter and she immediately connects to that child. But her daughter Hannah, she's just, something's off with her. She starts having these violent outbursts and tendencies, and like I said, she is most likely a sociopath. So that is a very interesting timeline. And then you're following a timeline in the present. And in the present, you're following Clara, and her boyfriend Luke has disappeared and he has actually had a stalker. So Clara is convinced that the stalker has abducted him, and so she's trying to figure out what happened to him, and she connects with his mom and dad, but also his sister, who has been missing for the past 20 years, actually shows up kind of out of the blue, out of nowhere. No one assumes she was alive, and she decides to try to help with trying to find Luke. And Clara feels like something is off with the sister, and she also feels like these incidents maybe are a little bit connected. So that's all I want to say about this one. It is a British thriller and I really, really enjoyed the audiobook. The audiobook narrators are amazing. There's 2 separate women for both POVs and I did not guess the twist and I really, really liked it. So I would highly suggest this one. So you know me, I had to pick some honorable mentions for my other favorite reads of the year because I have read some amazing other books that I really, really want to talk about. And so the first honorable mention that I want to talk about is Cirque Berserk by Jessica Guess. And I'm gonna try to give some short synopses for all these books. So this one is super fast paced, it's a retro read, and I actually mentioned this in my summer thriller and horror book recommendations that I just put out, so go check that video out if you want some more kind of seasonal reads. But this one is a really, really fun slasher. So in the summer of 1989, there was a massacre at a local carnival and a bunch of teenagers went wild and killed a bunch of people and then disappeared, and they haven't been seen since. 30 years later, a group of high school seniors learn about this urban legend and decide to actually visit the carnival that has since been shut off. And it's blocked off to the public, so they have to break in and they want to kind of see it and see if those events really happen. But they arrive and of course it's a horror novel, so things start going wrong. They start getting picked off one by one and they end up fighting for their lives. The next honorable mention is The Shuddering by Ania Ahlborn, and I read this for Winterween, and this was my very first read of the year, and oh my gosh, this one was so good. So this is a creature feature, and this is one of the only creature features I've read before, but I really, really loved it. And this is about a group of friends and they reconnect, reunite at this cabin, and it's snowy, but they end up getting snowed in and the weather conditions are terrible. So they're stuck in the cabin all together, and there's some sort of relationship drama going on and past friendship drama. But in addition to this, there are creatures that lurk outside. This one felt really cinematic and I really was able to visually picture everything. It was so good. It was so tense. Oh my gosh, there was one scene in particular, I was literally holding my breath. I feel like this would make an incredible movie. I really want to see a screen adaptation of this. And also in the beginning, I didn't really care about the characters, but as the novel progressed, I started caring more and more and more about these characters, and I was really attached to them, which actually surprised me a lot because usually when I'm going into this kind of horror novel, I don't really expect to grow attached to the characters, but I really was, and it was so good. So I highly recommend checking this one out. And if you're like me and a seasonal reader, I would recommend saving this one for the snowy months of the year. So My Dearest, Darkest by Kayla Cottingham is a debut novel from this author, and she is very skilled. I was very impressed by this one. And it's a dark academic sapphic YA horror novel. And this is about a group of girls who make a deal with a creature beneath their school, and this creature basically offers them anything they wish for. So it will grant all their wishes true in exchange for a small price: human body parts. And it starts off kind of milder. They sort of exchange like a fingernail, and then it just progresses and gets more and more sinister. And the horror in this one really, really creeps up on you. It's a YA, so I didn't really think that the imagery would be that disturbing, but it really is, and it was very intense. Also, the romance in this one was so cute. I usually don't care about romances in my books because I'm more of a thriller, horror reader, and sometimes romance in books or romantic elements even annoy me because I'm just not as interested in them when I'm reading. But in this one, it was really integral to the plot, and I think a lot of people will really, really get attached to the characters and invested in their romance. And also, there's just something about a dark academic setting that is just so cozy. I just want to be transported into the novel. Even if it's a horror novel, believe it or not, it's just so cozy to me, and this one was just such a cozy read. The next one is a perfect summer read, and it is The Island by Adrian McKinty, and I had such high hopes for this one, and I was so nervous about it because I wanted to love it, and I was so nervous that I wasn't going to, but thankfully I really enjoyed this one. And this one is even being adapted into a Hulu original series, which is very exciting. So this one is a super intense thriller about a family who's vacationing and they arrive on this private island, and something really horrible happens and they end up getting stuck there, and the locals want them dead, so they're fighting for their survival. I read this on audiobook. I would highly recommend doing it that way. I followed along physically, which is my favorite way to read, following along physically and listening. But the audiobook had sound effects in it. It had gun sound effects and rain, and it really, really enhanced the story. So I would recommend reading it that way. The next honorable mention is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. And this is a thriller that takes place on an island that has this mysterious, haunting past. And this is basically about a bunch of messy, rich people. Not all of them are rich, but messy, dramatic people who have a lot of drama going on, and they're all stuck on this island and lots of crazy stuff goes down. So I would highly recommend this one as a nice popcorn thriller. I feel like you're gonna fly through it if you're like me, if you have similar taste to me. And I just had a great time reading it. You can't take it too seriously. You just gotta sit back, relax, and enjoy the chaos that ensues, because I promise you there's a lot that happens. All right, this one just makes me smile so much, and it is My Best Friend's Exorcism. And this is by one of my favorite authors of all time, Grady Hendrix. And can you tell how much I love this book? I feel like I'm just like bringing it closer to my face. I love this book so much. It makes me really happy. And so this one is set in the 80s. It has a lot of 80s retro references and nostalgic vibes. And if you don't know, Grady Hendrix is honestly, in my opinion, the master at combining emotional, heartfelt stories with gore and disturbing elements, but also making it freaking hilarious. And so this one followed all of those components, and it's about two high school best friends, and one of them seems to become possessed. She's acting really weird, strange things are happening, and her best friend is trying to figure out how to save her friend who is possessed. So that's all you need to know. It mostly focuses on friendships, and it's a coming of age story, and I highly recommend this one. Another honorable mention is The Mary Shelley Club by Goldy Moldavsky. That last name is really hard for me to say, but this one, I am obsessed with the cover. Look, it's a knife on the spine, which is amazing. But this book has total Scream vibes, and it is a YA book. I flew through this one. I love the vibes of it, and it kept me really gripped until the end. This is about a secret club, and they play elaborate horror movie themed pranks on their classmates to make them terrified. Someone starts to target the club though, and they have to figure out how to survive and find the real killer. So the next question is the best sequel I've read so far in 2022. And if you all don't know this about me already, I will let you know now. I don't really read series very much, but I did read the Mindfuck series, and so I guess the Mindfuck series. I don't really have a specific best sequel in the series. I believe I liked the last one in the series the best, but I kind of have to skip over this question. The next one is a new release that I haven't read but want to. So I have so many. I have a whole series of my anticipated thriller releases as well as horror releases, so you can check those playlists out if you want to know all of the books that sound interesting to me, but I chose my top priority ones. So the first one that I would like to talk about is An Honest Lie by Tarryn Fisher. So this one is about Rainey, and she goes on a girls' trip to Vegas and has a wild night, but when she returns at the end of the night, one of her friends is gone, and she gets a text from her friend's phone saying that someone is holding her captive. And Rainey knows who they really want and why. So I particularly want to read this one because I took a vacation with my husband back in May this year, and we went to Vegas, and I was planning on reading this one in Vegas. It didn't end up happening. I ended up just reading the first book in the Mindfuck series, and that one was so enjoyable to read on vacation. I feel like it's the perfect vacation, easy read. I read it by the pool and also on the plane. I did not know my hair was falling down. I'm gonna take it down because I don't know how crazy it looks. But anyway, this one has mixed reviews, and I still really want to read it though because I want to hear all the references to the places that we visited. I also heard that it doesn't have as many references as I may hope for, but still, I really want to read this one still, and it's probably going to be a wild ride since it is Tarryn Fisher. I've only read The Wives by Tarryn Fisher, and I actually really dislike that one, but I'm hoping I'll enjoy this one more, and my guess is I probably will because it'll make me feel nostalgic. One of the Girls by Lucy Clarke is a very, very new release. It came out at the end of June, and I'm very interested in this one. So this is about 6 women who travel to Greece for a bachelorette trip, and everything seems too good to be true, but each of the women are holding a secret. And someone there is determined to make sure Lexi's marriage never happens, and one of them doesn't make it out alive. So when I was looking on Goodreads, it said that this one has sort of guest list vibes, and I love the guest list. It's one of my favorite books of all time. So I'm really intrigued by this one, and the whole vacation setting is totally up my alley, and I feel like this one would be filled with a ton of drama and hopefully multiple perspectives, and I oftentimes enjoy books like this, so I am very much looking forward to reading this one. I hope I love it. Another book I really want to get to is One of Us is Dead by Jeneva Rose. And this one looks like it's gonna have rich people murder vibes, which if it's done well, I can really, really love. So this looks like it's going to follow a group of women in a small town and follow their drama and their gossiping and also their revenge. And I'm really obsessed with the covers, so I want to physically own this one. Whenever I see a book with a really pretty cover or a cover that just really draws me in, I immediately want to own it, even if it's not necessarily super high rated. But I have high hopes for this one because it really seems like something I might really enjoy. Another book I want to get to is The Violence by Delilah S. Dawson. This one is kind of big though, and I have it from the library. I actually have to return it soon. It's almost 500 pages, but I was told that it goes by really, really fast, and I actually really, really adore this cover. It's really cool because at first glance, it looks just like a knife, but then if you look at the reflection, you actually see a profile of a face. So I really, really love it. I definitely want to own this one too. This one says 3 generations of abused women must navigate their chilling new reality as a mysterious epidemic of violence sweeps the nation in this compelling novel of self-discovery, legacy, and hope. So I know that this one deals with a lot of trigger warnings. It also is, you know, about an epidemic, so it may be a little bit too soon, if you know what I mean. But I still want to give this one a try. I'll just DNF it if I'm not vibing with it. But I have read another book by this author and I really enjoyed her writing style. It was actually a middle grade horror book called Mine. And since I really like that one, I really want to pick this one up. So the 4th question is, what is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year? And it is The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. And I actually have an arc of this one, and I started reading it last night. I kept subconsciously putting it off, I think, because I really, really loved In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. And whenever I really, really love a book by an author and they release a new book, it makes me very nervous to pick it up because I have such high expectations. And sometimes when I go into books with really, really high expectations, it sort of lowers my enjoyment. So I finally just decided, you know what, it's coming out in like 2 weeks. I might as well just dive right in. And so I started it. I'm only a few chapters in, but I'm really intrigued so far, and I love her writing style. And this one also combines cult elements as well as a true crime podcast, which are all tropes that I really enjoy reading. So this is about Shay, and it sounds like when she was in college, her and her friends ended up getting involved in this cult, and Shay and Laurel escaped, but her other friends did not. So Shay has tried to move on and build a wonderful life in the present day, and she's kind of buried her past behind her, and she's really addicted to this true crime podcast, and she actually knows the host from her past. And one day she finds out that Laurel, who was her best friend in college, has been murdered. And now she's worried about her own safety and wants to figure out what's going on. And so she actually contacts the podcast host, and they decide to try to team together to solve this case because the police say that her death was a suicide, but they are suspicious that it was not a suicide and that it was actually a murder. So question number 5 is, what was my biggest disappointment? My huge disappointment of this year, which makes me so sad. Oh my gosh. My huge disappointment was The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, I am obsessed with the guest list. It was such a fun time. I enjoyed The Hunting Party by this author, not quite as much, but I had such high expectations for this one because the setup was so amazing and it had so much potential. And oh my gosh, I'm just so sad about it. It makes me so sad. Like, I could just cry. So the main character in this one has just recently lost her job, and she asks her stepbrother, who lives in Paris in this luxury apartment complex, if she can crash with him for a while. And he sort of reluctantly agrees. He's not thrilled about it. But she arrives one night and she gets into his apartment and he's actually missing. And she thinks that's really strange, but she thinks maybe he's just out or something. So she sort of just goes to bed. But the longer he goes missing, the more she gets worried and tries to figure out what happened to him. And so she starts sort of turning to the other residents in the apartment complex, but they all seem weird or like they're possibly covering up a secret, and so she becomes suspicious of all of them. So this kind of gave me Lock Every Door vibes from the synopsis, and if you don't know, Lock Every Door by Riley Sager is one of my favorite books of all time. I love that one so much, and this one just was not it. It did not work for me. I listened to the audiobook and it was a full cast, and I just was so bored, like so incredibly bored as I was reading this one. And as it was being revealed and I was figuring out what was happening, I was just so, I was like, why is this what's happening? It's not, And I don't know if I'm being too harsh. I just expected a lot more from the author of the guest list, and unfortunately this one just really disappointed me. I know some people did enjoy it, so I hope you're one of those people who did enjoy it or will enjoy it. But yeah, this one just did not work for me. The stakes did not feel high at all. I felt like there wasn't any tension. I wasn't attached to any of the characters. I really didn't care what happened to the brother or if he was okay or whatnot. Yeah, this one just really didn't work for me, and now I'm extra nervous to read whatever book she puts out next. So for my biggest surprise, it would definitely be The Lies We Told. Like I said, this one I really didn't hear many people talking about. A subscriber recommended this one to me, and I just last minute sort of added it to my book of the month add-on, and I was so blown away by it. It was just so good. It's one of those stories that I was never once bored in, and I feel like even in books I like, while I'm reading, I can sort of pick out why they're not a full 5-star, but this one I thought was pretty flawless. I just really enjoyed it. And then of course Reckless Girls was my other surprise, because so many people did not like this book. They were unimpressed, really didn't like it, thought it was trash, and I loved it. I thought it was such a fun experience, and yeah, I loved it. As soon as I read it, I gave it 5 stars. I was blown away in the fact that I just enjoyed my experience so much. And I've said this before, but I rate things 5 stars for multiple reasons. So for the reason of Reckless Girls, why I gave it 5 stars is because it was so entertaining and fun. And then for The Lies We Told, I rated it 5 stars because it was such a good story, so well written. The twist was incredible and the quality of it was very high. Whereas Reckless Girls, was the writing quality phenomenal? Was it something that was, you know, groundbreaking or breathtaking? No, it was a popcorn thriller, but I gave them both 5 stars because I really loved them. The next question is my favorite new author, and that would definitely be Kayla Cottingham, who wrote My Dearest, Darkest. This was her debut novel and it was fantastic. My newest fictional crush is no one. The books I read are dark, intense thrillers and horrors for the most part, and there's never really a love interest that I would develop a crush for. So I don't really have an answer for this one. My newest favorite character is definitely Molly from The Maid by Nita Prose. Oh, Molly, I just want to literally hug Molly. Molly the maid, iconic queen. This one is about Molly, who is a maid at a hotel, and she struggles with social skills and interpreting them, and so she's always turned to her grandmother, who she has a very close relationship with, to kind of help her navigate life and social cues and such. But her grandmother has recently passed away, but she finds comfort in going to her job. She's very passionate about cleaning and does an incredible job. One day though, she goes into a room and stumbles upon a very infamous man dead in his bed. And she actually becomes the main suspect in the investigation due to her unusual mannerisms, and she has to try to kind of get the help of the fellow employees and staff at the hotel to figure out who really is responsible for the murder. And a lot of this book, you know what's going on and you're hearing it through Molly's perspective, but you as a reader understand the situation. But just hearing her thoughts and how she thinks of people, I just loved her character so much. She's really funny too. And this one is also a very emotional read. I know it's being adapted for film, which is very exciting, and Florence Pugh is going to be Molly, and I love Florence Pugh. She is such an incredible actor, so I am very excited to watch that whenever the movie comes out. I hope it comes out soon. The next question is a book that made me cry, and I can't remember 100% if this book made me cry, but I think it did, and it is The Maid, once more. I really felt like I was gonna cry in it. There's some really, really surprisingly sad moments because the book is sort of more of a cozy mystery, but then it has these really sad, emotional moments. So I can't remember if a tear literally fell from my eye or if I just felt like crying, but this is the book that made me the closest to crying, if not made me cry. Also, the ending of my best friend's Exorcism, I didn't cry, but it was very emotional as well. And Grady Hendrix always does that in his books. Question number 12 is the most beautiful book I have been gifted or I have bought this year. And I think my answer would be Good Rich People. And this one was gifted to me by my friend Erin over at Erin Megan here on YouTube. And this cover is just stunning to me. I love it. I want it framed as artwork. If I had to choose another one, I don't own this, but like I showed you before, The Violence, I am a big fan of this cover as well. But what I own, I would definitely say Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier. So this one I actually really, really enjoyed. Again, that's a little bit of an unpopular opinion because a lot of people did not enjoy this one. So this one is really hilarious. It has this comedic tone to it, and the characters in this are just so ridiculous. Their thoughts are absurd at times, and it's sort of a commentary on rich people, and more specifically just very shallow rich people who just are very, very out of touch from reality because they're given everything, so they sort of have to look for something to entertain them because they have access to literally everything. And I really enjoyed this one. I listened to it on audiobook and I thought that the narrator really, really added to the tone. So if you want to give this one a shot, which I recommend you do, I would recommend listening through audiobook because I think that is going to really enhance your experience. The last question is, what books do I need to get to by the end of the year? And I have a few that I'm really prioritizing. So the first one is No One Gets Out Alive by Adam Nevill. And this one has been on my TBR for so long. This is another example of me putting something off because I really, really, really want to love it. And I'm nervous because I have such high expectations, but I just need to get over that. Seriously, Savannah, get over it and jump into the book because this one looks like it's going to be something I really, really love. So this is about Stephanie, and she gets the opportunity to live in this really, really, really budget apartment, and it's sort of falling apart. The landlord's creepy, but she decides to take the opportunity because she can't afford anything else. And she starts to suspect that the place is haunted, and I've heard that this has paranormal elements, so that type of horror, but also real world horror elements as well. And I've heard that this is one of the scariest books that a lot of people have ever read. So I am very, very intrigued by this one. I would love to be terrified and traumatized by a book. So I really hope that this one does that for me, and I really need to get to this one as soon as possible. The next one that I for sure want to read is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. I've owned this one for a while, and I know it's super divisive, so I need to see where I fall on the spectrum, if I love this one or if I hate it. Who knows, it would be super interesting if I was right in the middle, because that actually sometimes happens with me. And I heard that the Netflix series isn't great, but I still may watch it after reading the book just to see. So this is about Louise, and she is a single mom, and she actually runs into a guy at a bar, and they really hit it off and they end up kissing. But she goes to her new job on Monday, and the man that she actually met is her new boss. And he's married and says that was a huge mistake. But then his wife befriends her, and then they start having this friendship, and she finds out that his wife is really, really scared of him. And the closer she gets to this couple, the more she figures out that something is very, very off with them. All right, so those are my answers for the mid-year freakout tag. Thank you so much for watching. If you've gotten this far, comment a book emoji in the comments, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Happy reading.